Well, well, well. Today is the day of days, everybody. You probably already saw it in the title, but we're going to be talking about a few things. Bomber Royale, we got some footage of it this time, but more importantly, U10 Plus, and how they have actually confirmed that there's going to end up being new gems. So, we've got some exciting stuff today to talk about there, folks. Like, seriously, it's really, really cool. We've got some, some news about the new Bomber Royale mode. Let's talk about the May update, which is actually confirmed to being a thing. We ended up actually getting a comment on yesterday's Trove video from the official Trove channel. So I thought that that was really cool, where they ended up clarifying and saying that the May update is still going to end up coming out, but it's not related to this whole Bomber Royale and all of the new stuff, because I kind of speculated that the May update ended up getting delayed. Most of all, you can't really blame me for something like that when they haven't actually talked about the May update, like, in the least. But next week, guys, this is really cool. Next week, they're going to show off some of the new stuff, because apparently the Bomber Royale is only the tip of the iceberg, and there's going to be a whole bunch more content coming out with the summer update, and we're going to be able to go onto the test server next week. Most likely, it's going to end up being after the developer live stream. So we'll just have to kind of see what ends up happening with that. I would just naturally assume it's going to end up being after the stream. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. So we've got quite a bit of footage here. I'm going to start inserting some of it, of the developers actually doing a live stream where they were playing the Bomb Royale minigame mode, right? And it seems cool. It seems kind of fun. Apparently, this is going to end up replacing PvP altogether in the hub area. So that's kind of interesting that they ended up actually going that route. But then also the game mode is pretty unique in that the arena is going to end up slowly disintegrating as you're playing it. And then every one of your abilities, you're going to be throwing down bombs. You have infinite bombs, and you're going to be able to destroy the environment. And then every class is going to end up using the Lunar Lancer's hookshot, which, looking at the hookshot that we actually see in the Bomb Royale game mode, I want them to put that into the game as the Lunar Lancer's normal right click, because it's way better, and personally speaking, I think could end up stepping the Lunar Lancer up as far as a character is concerned, because it means that you would be able to actually use him for speed farming, maybe even more effectively than the Neon Ninja, because you can see the momentum that you end up getting by right-clicking, and grappling onto something and jumping last minute. It just throws you across the map. Like, that would be so fun to actually have that out farming and stuff like that. Never mind the Bomb Royale, but a couple things to note about the Bomb Royale is the fact that, you can fall out of the arena and you'll end up dying. There's going to end up just being the arena slowly closing off. They also did actually mention that there are going to end up being rewards from the Battle Royale minigame that are going to end up giving mastery, unfortunately, which means that we're going to have to, kind of forced to grind it. They did say that they'll take feedback and wait to see how popular the game mode is before they end up adding more to it, but they possibly could end up adding more power-ups. And they also did mention that the mounts may possibly be tradable. The developer that was actually talking about didn't exactly know, and nobody seemed to clarify whether or not the items purchased for the new currency were going to end up being tradable. But naturally, I'm assuming there's going to end up being some store packs that will include a couple alternative skins of these mounts. But the next update, the big summer update, apparently is going to end up also having some new types of mounts that have a lot more functionality to them. Merc ended up actually bringing this up to me like maybe an hour or two ago in Discord, where it was a couple developer live streams back where people were asking, like, are you going to end up adding new mounts to the big update? And they said yes, they were going to end up being really, really cool, because somebody ended up asking about a mount where your character would just end up running faster, and then they said that's a good idea, and we are going to end up having some interesting weird mounts coming out in the next big update, but they were going to end up postponing that particular idea, right? So out of the skills that you're going to end up getting in the Bomb Royale game mode, you're going to be able to just have your normal left click, which is going to be a bomb that's going to end up bouncing once before it ends up sticking to the ground or anything like that. And then your right click is going to be a grappling hook, which is going to take you around the map. Then you can end up getting power-ups while you're exploring. These will vary from healing you, using a spike bomb, which is going to end up getting stuck to the surface of, the just walls and stuff like that. Then there's a lava bomb, which as it explodes ends up creating a lava pool very similar to the ice primordial dragon, but he ends up doing water instead, right? Or water primordial, I guess I should say, instead of ice. But then there's also going to end up being the gunslinger's jump ability. So you just pop that and you're just gonna fly up into the air. It actually looks like a lot of fun. And most importantly of all, the reason why I was so skeptical about this game mode in the first place is because I thought that this was just going to be it for the summer update. I thought it was just going to end up being the Bomber Royale game mode. And then on top of that, it looked like, oh, just another PvP thing that they're focusing on that no one's really going to care about, right? But the fact that this update is not going to end up being the highlight, it's just the first thing that they're actually talking about, does have me very hopeful for this update. And I think that it's cool that they're kind of just forcing in this new PvP game mode on top of everything else that apparently is going to end up being pretty big. Now, they did also mention in the dev live stream U10, or should I say U10 Plus. They specifically said U10 Plus, and this is not the first time that we've actually heard them use that term. So it means that when the fall update ends up hitting and giving us the new U10 world, obviously the worlds are going to end up getting higher and higher and higher. There was also sigils that were leaked like months back. I don't think I actually have the images on my computer anymore. If I do have them, I'll insert them into the video, but if not, sorry to say. But anyways, people were speculating that those emblems were going to end up being, or the sigils, I mean, were going to end up being every 2,500 PR, just because there was quite a few of them. And if they do, in fact, go based off of that, it means that 40,000 power rank might end up being the new maximum when the U10 Plus update ends up coming out, possibly meaning that we could see U10 going all the way up to U20, or maybe just U15. Time will tell. We'll see what happens with that. But they did, in fact, confirm that they are going to end up adding new gems. We ended up recently talking about the fact that they ended up confirming that there was going to end up being new gear. Unfortunately, now they have confirmed that there is going to end up being new gems. We're not entirely sure how they're going to end up being implemented. If they're just going to end up being a new tier of gems, or if they're going to end up being something altogether unique to the U10 world and up. U10 most likely is going to end up being 15,000 power rank if it's kind of following the game, game progression, because everything is kind of just every 5,000 power rank, you end up going to the next world. So at 26,000 PR, we might be able to handle a pretty tough world. That said, are these enemies going to end up being very powerful? Most likely, they're going to end up being scaled the same as Ultra Shadow Towers, where they're going to end up limiting the amount of damage that we do to these enemies. Just because with the way that Trove works, the reason why Ultra Towers do that in the first place is because Trove's damage numbers can only go so high as far as the game's code is concerned. So the only way that they can prevent us from doing the maximum amount of damage to one-shot ultra enemies is they have to end up making us weaker and scaling us down just appropriately to work with that. So the May update apparently is just going to end up being some bug fixes, and they have hinted that the summer update is going to be a big quality of life update. So I'm not entirely sure how much new content we're going to end up actually seeing per se. Maybe we're going to end up seeing like a bunch of new costumes, a bunch of new mount types, and then some things that are going to end up being a little bit better. Like maybe we'll see improvements to parts of the game rather than actually seeing a whole bunch of new content to end up playing with. And then of course the big emphasis is going to end up being on the Bomber Royale game mode, and then just the fall update being U10. They didn't really mention whether or not we're going to be able to play on custom maps like in Club Worlds. Every time they were asked this question, they kind of ended up dodging it, which tells me that we probably aren't going to end up seeing Club Worlds being able to do the Bomber Royale game mode, but it would be really cool just because it does seem like an interesting game mode. I'm sorry about my last bit of video being so skeptical about it, but it's just when it comes to PvP, it's like, it's kind of maybe more than 50% of people just don't even bother with it, let alone aren't even interested in it. But anyways, now we'll get to the normal stuff, just the standard Q&A. Big shout out to Shiro Kiri because they end up always posting on the forums, just kind of a Q&A from the developers. I ended up actually watching this live stream. That's why I actually had a lot more information than what's actually just in this post. But there are still things that are worth mentioning. So is there going to be a fix to the squish text boxes in the works for, if you end up going up to things, sometimes the text box is like all squished and everything like that. Of course, they're going to end up fixing that. What else is in the summer update? They just say that there's a lot more they're going to talk about in next week's Trove Dev live stream. And then once again, I do want to mention that the test server is going to end up going live. Now, before you end up sitting there typing your comment in saying, when is it going to go live? What time is it going to go live? I don't know when the server is going to go live. They just mentioned that it's going to end up being next week. But you can fully expect that I'm going to not only have a video that's going to tell you when the test server is online, so you might want to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you end up knowing the moment that it's up. But then on top of that, just the fact that there's going to be all this new content. So I'm obviously going to be busy covering all of that, which is perfect timing too, seeing as the MapleStory closed beta is going to end up closing next week, right? So any plans for people just dying fast for XP? I'm not exactly sure what that is, but they say you get, I guess they're talking about in the Bomber Royale game. Yeah, okay. So they say you get rewarded by doing things. You can't just AFK farm and get rewards and get XP that way in the Bomber Royale game mode, which I'm naturally assuming you just got to kill one person before you end up actually being able to get any rewards or anything like that. But one thing that's interesting to note that I like about the Bomber Royale is that you can click play again at any time, and it just instantly loads you into the next round rather than just having to wait there like an idiot. So hopefully it's going to end up being something that remains popular rather than just coming out and then for a month everybody's playing it and then it's just dead and nobody can end up playing it, especially with the requirement of players being 15. Now, the thing too that's interesting is apparently it's going to end up replacing PvP in the hub altogether with just this new game mode. So that should end up alleviating a lot of the, distancing between different players, kind of trying to go into two different types of PvP modes. It means that hopefully it's going to end up forcing all of them into one specific portal, right? Will Starfire Dragon Egg fragments be expanded to all Shadow Tower enemies? They say there's no current plans for that, which is disappointing because I still don't think that they realize which enemies can end up actually dropping the Starfire fragments and why that dragon is extremely rare. Are the new classes not allowed to use the class coin unlock? So the developers have hinted at this with previous updates, and they do actually confirm here that they're looking to move away from the class coin system in general. They want to kind of learn from the Vanguardian class and say that they're working on a way to fairly absorb the remaining class coins. So I don't know if that means that they're going to end up making all existing classes not work with a class coin in general, or if they're just saying that new classes aren't going to end up having class coins be able to use them, but we do know that next year they are going to be working on another class, and class coins are confirmed to not actually work for that character as well, but that's way far away in the future. So can the Firelands Elemental world map get reworked because it's pretty gross? They just say that it's a long-standing bug mentioned in previous streams. They plan to fix it, but it's not an immediate priority. I mean, it should be, considering the fact that you have to grind like for hours on end just to end up getting those fire gems. That should be something that should be a priority because grinding is a thing in this game. That said, I think that they're focusing on U10 right now because of the fact that when it comes out, it's probably going to end up being pretty cool. Any plans to add more content that players can build custom arenas for? They pretty much just say probably not, just because of how taxing it is for performance-wise on the game to end up like building all of the arena tokens and everything like that. Will we get a new gem system, or gem type, like say Earth? So here's the big question you've all been waiting for. No spoilers on this yet. New types of gems are a candidate to be a component of the U10 Plus release, which is targeted for later this year. So there it is. New gems are coming out. They do say that new types of gems are a candidate. So fingers crossed that they're not just trying to mislead us and they're actually just adding like a new tier of gems. There's a couple things that they could end up doing with this that I personally feel would end up being really cool. First of all, if they ended up just adding a new class gem for every character, that would be great. Class gems have kind of lost a lot of their substance over the years, and I think that they could end up adding a couple more of them to some of the characters to end up overall making them feel like they have a different play style, be a little bit more powerful and stuff like that. But another thing too that they could do is certain gems, maybe lesser gems particularly, could end up having certain powers to them. I don't know. Or more importantly, if they ended up just adding like a whole new area or maybe like a couple extra gem slots right here that would be for special gems only, not necessarily that we would have to replace our stellar gems, because there's a very, very fine line here that I'm really, really hoping that the developers are conscious of, in that if they just end up adding a whole new tier of gems, a lot of people aren't going to be very impressed with that, despite the fact that U10 I'm sure is going to end up being really cool and impressive. I think that a lot of people would end up quitting just because of the amount of time that's required to invest into all of these stellar gems in the first place so that we can end up being as powerful as we are. And then to suddenly just say, screw you, you know, to every single player that ended up spending not only their time, but their money on all of the stellar gems and gem augmenting items and all of this stuff, to suddenly, you know, have to be doing that all over again with a new set of gems. I don't know, dude. Like, that's some very, very sticky terrain that they're messing with if they end up thinking that that's going to end up being a good idea. So time will tell. The fact that they say new types of gems has me concerned whether it's going to end up being an actual, like, whole other new type, or if they're just kind of saying that it's going to end up being new tiers. I'm expecting new tiers of gems, honestly speaking, because of the fact that we know confirmed that there is going to end up being a new tier of gear. And I want to put a little bit more emphasis on this, folks, just because I know that lots of people sometimes think that, you know, why are you being so skeptical about all these new updates? But I try to, you know, be openly critical about this game because I love it so much, and I don't like it being moved in a direction that I feel ends up hurting it overall, because I like seeing more people play it. I want this game to be more successful than it is, but I don't know. It's just, I'm personally invested in this game, you know, like, because I've been playing it for so long that I want to be able to actually experience new content that's exciting. Now, the point that I'm trying to get at here is that the developers promised us, they promised the last time that they added stellar gear to the game that it was going to be the last time that they were going to end up adding a new tier of gear. So I just want to emphasize that, to say that clearly the fact that they're going to be adding a new tier of gear and a new tier of gems means that most likely in a year or two, again, they're going to end up just adding a whole other tier. Like, this clearly seems to be their way for developing the game. And in a lot of ways, maybe I'm being overly critical to say this, but it feels like we're not making enough money. So let's add a new tier of gems so that people end up giving us more money. Because obviously at this point, you know, the game itself and Trion Worlds is just trying to milk the people that are spending money on Trove rather than trying to bring new people in. But you know, again, that's just my 2 cents towards it. That's an overly critical statement for me to say, I know, but I just want to be clear about the fact that even though I'm excited about there being a new tier of, you know, gear and even a new tier of gems, I'm perfectly fine with that. I do still think that it's a little bit lame if they end up going that route, considering how everything was kind of set in a very nice, like, oh, you've completed the game once you end up getting fully stellared up gear. And now suddenly we're just going to end up seeing a whole other tier of everything added on top of that just feels like, oh, you guys are clearly out of ideas. But anyways, I don't want to go on too long about that. Let me know what you all think in the comment section down below. I would love to hear your feedback. Am I wrong or am I right? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Anyways, we got 2 last questions here and then we're going to call it. So when will there be more color variations on blocks? They say that not color variation, but we have more types of blocks coming in the summer update. I mean, if it's anything like the blocks that require like Gonda coins and Pembar coins and stuff like that, like, who cares? I mean, Gonda coins have been renamed, but seriously, so what about blockchains? Give us more prop items that we can interact with. That would be cool. And then finally, will some of the early Luxian items make a reappearance? The developers say that yes, they will end up coming back in the future, which I could have confirmed this for you guys right here and there, because Luxian's already had a repeat of some of his sales, right? Like, you know. And not to mention, we know for a fact that a lot of these old daily login items are going to end up being in Luxian's inventory as well. Oh, and then I guess I should mention finally that you should wait until you end up getting the little Bergie. Don't bother actually getting them out, just because this ally is actually useful. In either case though, folks, this video is longer than I expected it to be, but we did have a lot of exciting stuff to talk about, most definitely. Not to mention all the speculation about all the gems and stuff. Like, even if they end up going in a direction that is going to end up overall hurting the current player base, I still do think that it's really, really cool that we're going to end up getting a whole new area of grinding and stuff. And being an old school player, it does make me excited in a lot of ways. Because I'm a pay to win player, it makes me excited because it means that I can end up just most likely buying my way to the top. But I do honestly feel that it's a bit cheap that they're doing something like this. And I do always try to consider the fact that I'm a YouTuber. I'm making money off of these Trove videos that I then end up spending on the game to progress, and I feel justified in that purchase. Whereas if I wasn't actually doing YouTube videos, I probably would not be pay to win in this game because I don't see the logic in it. I'm just trying to make that point across. I'm not trying to talk about money or anything. I'm just trying to say that other people that are pay to win in this game might feel very different about the fact that they're going to have to drop down $500 per class, if not more, for a new set of gems. And how high are those gems going to end up going? If we're going to end up seeing a new tier of gear, and they've only mentioned that it's going to end up being one new tier, but the fact that it's going to be U10 plus means that are we going to end up seeing a new tier of gems that is just going to be the U10 and up gems? Are we going to end up seeing new tiers of gems for every Uber world on top of U10? Or is it just going to end up being an overall new tier of gems, or maybe even just a new tier of augmenting them? Time will tell what ends up happening, but I would love to hear your feedback in the comments, everybody. Thanks for watching. Very much appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe for more daily content. Do not forget that next week we're going to be able to test out the summer update on the test server, so that's going to be really cool. I'm going to be doing lots of live streams and lots of videos covering all of that stuff. But anyways, if you want to support me, you can always sponsor my YouTube channel. You end up getting a bunch of stuff for that, and you can sponsor me for a monthly payment, right? But then on top of that, you can check the links in the description for my merch store, which has this shirt and a bunch of others, as well as new shirts. I've ordered mine. I'm going to show them off in a video when I have them available. And then there's also Gawkbox, which is a way that you can donate to me for free through sponsored donations. Sign on and stay epic, everybody.